This is the Creative Download, hosted by Christy Bruno and Chelsea Nettleton, created by creatives for other creatives.
Well, welcome to our show and happy Friday. I'm Christy Bruno. I'm a singer-songwriter, scriptwriter, former dancer, and wannabe backup dancer on the Grammys one day.
Yep. And I am Chelsea Nettleton, singer songwriter, scriptwriter, photographer, budding music producer, and wannabe children's book illustrator. Except I
Yeah.
can't I can't draw for crap, but it's still a dream.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'll play with it.
Yes.
Um, hey guys, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Welcome to the Creative Download. And so Christy, how's your week been? What are you listening to right now or watching? Like what's caught your eye?
Well, a couple things. Today's New Music Friday on Spotify, so I love to listen to New Music Friday. A lot of great female artists out.
Yeah.
But over the week, I really tapped into a band from Australia that I really loved called Glass Beams. And they just have this really cool funk sound. It's just a really, I don't know, it just grabbed me. So I'm that kind of
Love that.
into them right now. And then just watching some of the takes from the Grammys, which was so exciting to see all the female artists getting awards.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the whole thing yet. I'm going to sit down this weekend and watch the whole show, but just it was just really exciting. So that's what I've been doing music wise this
I
week.
love
Yeah.
that. I
How about
love that.
you?
Yeah, I actually, so it's kind of funny. It's not technically listening to something, um, except it was because it gave me inspiration. So I did a really deep dive into, well, a minor deep dive into Logic, via YouTube. There's again
Yeah.
going back to there's so many resources out there. Like these didn't cost me anything, and I thought I actually knew Logic fairly well, and I still learned a ton. So that was really fun. And then the producers that did the episodes, there's two of them. I'll link them in our notes because I thought they were great teachers. One of them, she was hilarious, but I learned a lot at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the gentleman, he's really good with Logic, and I learned a ton from him. So
Do you want to
that's kind of
say
what I did
just
this
a
week.
little bit about what Logic is for anyone listening
That's
who's
a good
really
call.
young or brand new to songwriting?
Yes, that's a good
Just a
call.
brief, like, what is Logic? What are because I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about, but
That's a really good point. I'm glad you said that because I wouldn't have thought, or like for our painter or dancer friends, like
yeah, yeah.
this is a tool of songwriting. It's Logic. I use Logic Pro, which is it's called a DAW, excuse me, digital audio work, no, interface, workspace.
Workspace. I think it's workspace. Yeah.
Digital audio workspace. I think that's it's close enough. That's what it is. It's where I that's where I do my producing. That's where a lot of people do their producing. And it's a fantastic software. Like we're not sponsored by them. I love Logic. They have a
Mhm.
lot of free tools in there, and things that I learned how to use to basically take what I was already doing, which is my songwriting, and take it to the next level. It yeah, and that may be a whole other segment, for those of you that want, that are singer songwriters. Because I know Christy, you
Yeah.
use it too, and
Yeah.
you're kind of in a place where I was maybe a year ago. So it'll be neat to
Mhm.
see the different, levels of,
Yeah.
anyways,
And it's
that was
industry standard.
it
So the
is.
Logic Pro is industry standard
You're right.
if you're a brand new songwriter and you
Yeah.
just need to get your songs down, you can
Yep.
record it just like the real scratch. I call it the scratch song.
Yes. Yes.
You can use GarageBand. You can
Yep.
use your phone, but
Yep.
Logic Pro is more like, okay, now we're going to really like get into producing. That's why you're a budding producer. So I
Yeah.
wanted to
I love that.
add that for you.
And and I know we're working on our intro and keeping it shorter, but I do just want to say this, and this can apply to any of our creatives. It doesn't matter, what you do. For me as a songwriter, Logic, it was scary to learn at first. I made it scary. It is not scary.
It's
Or
easy.
any
Transfer.
DAW. So Logic is a DAW, again, digital audio workspace. Um, it's I was terrified of it for so long, but when I forced I actually got some coaching, and through my coach Mike Myers with songwriting for guitar, he helped make it not scary. and now it's my best friend. If I sit down and I'm working on music, I immediately open Logic and I open a new little file. I have a template ready to go so that I can just get my idea down.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's something we'll talk about down the road, is tools and, tricks and things like that, to whatever your art is, to make it so that it's actually easier for you to do it so that you can do what you love. So, yeah.
Yes.
All right. So that's all on
That's
Logic,
good
but
stuff.
it was such a good week for that. I mean, I had just a delightful day that day. I had some coffee next to me and I just watched a bunch of videos. But anyways, and I love that you listen to, you do the new music Friday. I need to start doing that on Spotify. So I'm excited about
Well,
that.
I'm writing right now. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah. What are you up
so
to?
I'm writing with my co-writers, George and
Okay.
Lori, and we have a couple new songs that we want to write. And so it's really good for me to listen to what's coming out in the new
Yeah,
music
that's true.
and what is, so that I have fresh ears. It's like back to some active listening, right?
Yeah,
Like
I love that.
fresh ears for the new songs, right? So we just went through a stretch of really working on the publishing side of our songs, which that's a
Nice.
whole other thing. And in fact, Judy gave us in our coffee this week, because I was on the coffee with
Oh,
Judy and Mike,
nice.
a
Yeah.
really good example of what happens with songwriting, in that you go through like the songwriting part's the fun, the kid part, like everybody likes the play. And then
Right.
there's the publishing part, which is like the administration and all the paperwork and all of the
Yeah.
registration. And that's the adult part of
Right.
songwriting. And there's
I love
also like
that.
knowing of whether the song is ready to go to production and all of that. So
Yeah.
we've been a lot in the publishing side, and then just,
Okay.
okay, we're switching back to some songwriting side. We've got a handful of songs already done,
Nice.
and we do all the publishing for it. But then it's like, oh, we need to spend some more time songwriting. So the
Yeah.
listening helps to get into the mood of that.
That's
Right.
awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Okay, Chelsea. So what are you working on right now? What are you working on this week?
I'm really excited. So that song that we did it for our intro, and we talked about it last episode. This it's called "Still You're Only One," that I wrote with Pete Dolan of Circle of Thirds, and we submitted it to a contest to see if we could get it onto a Valentine's Day
Yeah.
playlist. And it's actually, there's a couple episodes. There's 3 episodes this week, and I think 3 next week. And we are actually on. So as of today that we're recording, February 7th, we are on today's episode. I think we're like midway through the songs. We're like the
Wow.
6th or 7th song. So it's really exciting. So
Yes.
that's kind of what I was working on this week, was doing some, getting some promotional stuff made for social media. And things like that. So that was my main focus, but Pete and I are also working on our next song. And that was really fun, because I'm excited to share that process down the road. But he and I had a really good time. Like, again, it was kind of the same idea we came up with. He had a riff, and then I played off of that vocally and lyrically and melodically, and then I brought back to him, and so it's just really fun. So
Yeah. Can't
to
wait
keep
to hear
that
it.
short, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited. It's one of those like kind of anthem, like builds you up, like let's do this. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to have one of those. So
Yes.
all right, well, let's get on, as we like to say, let's get on with the good stuff. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about clearing the channel. We'll explain more what to do with the creative download after you've at least
Yes.
started clearing the channel, right? I know we're
Yeah.
both excited about that one. And then lastly, we'll talk about some of the resources, a book we highly recommend. And then, Christy, I think it'd be cool if we gave, like, let's just do one tool or one exercise
Hmm.
that maybe each of us does, to help clear the channel and get to that point. Does that sound
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I love it.
For the first one, yes, there's going to be many tools that because we
Yes.
use a lot of tools, but we don't want to talk
Yeah.
about all of them at one time if someone's
Yeah.
listening that's new. Yeah.
Exactly. We don't want to bombard you guys. I know how it was when I first realized I needed to start clearing the channel and then started finding tools and resources. I had to be careful not to overwhelm myself. So let's talk first about clearing the channel. Christy, what in the world are we talking about with that?
Well, I mean, the channel is really that channel from, the universe, I guess, or the creative ideas coming into our artist self, right? And just want to say this came to me today in my writing before we met. I really am, and I think a lot of creatives are people who feel much more intensely. And
Yeah.
so it's when we don't have like a real safe place for that, then we block off our channel because it's just too
Yeah.
hard, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's kind of my story. My
Yeah.
story is growing up with people who my dad was very creative and very blocked off. And
Interesting.
we'd have moments of creativity, but it really wasn't encouraged. Feelings were not encouraged. And so I think with creatives, there's a lot of feeling and intuition that goes on
Yeah.
that as little kids, we're really in tune with. But then as we go, if that's not supported, we really block that channel.
Yeah.
And
I
so
agree.
by the time I graduated high school, I was pretty blocked off.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know like what I wanted to do. And that's normal at 18 or what, although I wanted to do dance, it was really discouraged. And I
Yeah.
talked about that on the last episode.
Yeah.
And so like I didn't know I needed to clear a channel, honestly. There's no like voice that said clear a channel.
Right. Right. This
We're
isn't a thing
calling
taught
it
in
that.
school.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
calling it that.
Yeah.
However, I wanted to share just a moment that I
Yeah.
had that was the beginning that because I really gave it thought before our podcast. And
Yeah.
when I was 20, after I went to Arizona State University,
Okay.
and I just did not could not find a degree that worked for me. It did nothing
Yeah.
felt right. Everything I was doing was kind of like not for me. It just I didn't have that connection. But I got a job at a treatment center, St. Luke's Behavioral Health Center,
Okay.
with teenagers. And I was
Okay.
like one of the psych techs on it. And my
Okay.
stepsister worked there, and there was a lot of us in college that were working there. And my history was in my family was my family used alcohol a lot to just deal with life. Like
Right.
everybody very much functioned, had jobs, but
Yeah.
alcohol was used to just like shut
Yeah.
down the feelings and just show up and be kind of like robotic, right?
Right.
And so here I am working in this, and I was doing it too.
Yeah.
Here I am working at this treatment center as these kids are coming in, they're teenagers needing to like get treatment for drugs and alcohol. And there
Yeah.
was a woman there that worked on as a counselor, and she was Native American, she was Hopi, and she was sober 25 years. And she was
Wow.
also a healer. She did a lot of energy
Oh,
work.
that's cool.
And I was really struggling with being blocked. I had no idea. This is reflection, right? So
Yeah. Right.
self-reflection, knowing
Right.
this. And I came into work one day, and one of the nurses was said to Mona was my Native American coworker, and she said,
Yeah.
and she was probably 15 years older than me. I'm 23 at the time. And she says, Mona, you need to do something for this kid. She called me a kid.
Oh.
She is so blocked.
Yeah.
And so Mona was like kind of hesitant. She walked over to me and she's like, okay, just sit down. And she puts her hand on my back and she starts breathing deep breaths. And she's like, I just want you to breathe with me. And so we started breathing together. And all of
Okay.
a sudden, I felt like my arms almost light up like with electricity. It was just like through my arms. I feel it right now saying it,
Just
like the
yeah.
tingling coming out of my fingers. And I said to her,
Yeah.
am I supposed to feel like this electricity going through my arms? And she
Yeah.
goes, well, actually, yes, you are. But I really didn't think that you would get there because you're so blocked. That's what she said to me.
Wow.
I had no idea what she was talking about
Right. Right.
at the time.
Yeah.
But she began to unblock my channel.
That's
And
cool.
within a few weeks, I quit drinking alcohol.
That's amazing.
And that was a huge channel clear. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I had to do to deal with the download because
Yeah.
I couldn't manage that very well. It was I got opened up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was like my first experience. And
Yeah.
then she actually became my mentor
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
she knew how to manage that quite a
Yeah.
bit and keep it flowing. And
Yeah.
so she did sweats at her house.
Oh,
And
cool.
you could only go by invitation. And I
Oh,
was
that's
so honored
cool.
to be invited. So I went to about 4 or 5 sweats. And
So cool.
that was the beginning of my clearing my channel.
And just real quick, what a sweat, just for those of us
Sweat
that
lodge.
have never done one.
Okay,
Yeah.
like a
Just
sweat
brief
lodge.
description of that.
So she built a sweat lodge in her backyard. This is
Okay.
in Arizona in the summer. Let me just
Oh gosh, you don't even need anything to heat it
even
up. It's the
spring, summer. Oh
sun.
no, but she did. And
Oh gosh.
there's a whole spiritual, it's a spiritual process. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and I connected to that
It's like
quite
a cleansing,
a
right?
cleansing. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you do 4 rounds for from what I remember, I'm not Native
Okay.
American. So it's like
Sure.
it was like her sharing this with me and
That's
about
really
5 or 6 other people.
okay.
She creates the fire, and
Okay.
then she would hold the fire, rocks in the fire,
Okay.
and then we would do 4 rounds of prayer and meditation. And
Okay.
so she came in with like, everyone sits in this, it's almost like a toboggan kind of cover.
Okay.
Come
Gotcha.
in, very little clothing, like t-shirt and
Right.
shorts, and she puts the hot rocks on, pours water on it, and it's a steam.
Okay.
And it's funny, I do hot yoga now. Like
Yeah.
I'm a hot yoga person. It's totally how I keep
I want to
that.
try that so bad.
Really?
I think that'd be helpful for
It
me too.
started with Mona. And
Yeah.
so you do 4 rounds of this. And
Okay.
so it's basically you sweat out a lot of the toxins, but the prayer and
Yeah.
meditation part is there. And it also helps with, meditation is a brain activity that
Right.
actually helps to build the brain cortex. I know that now,
Right.
but that was a beginning of like actually me getting in touch with myself,
Yeah.
because that's what was you're never disconnected from yourself, but you can be blocked off. I was very blocked off
Absolutely.
from the voice that was going to tell me what I needed to do next.
Right.
I
Right.
couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
And so that was like my first really, like, if I were going to give you a concrete experience of
Yeah.
getting unblocked. And so I needed somebody else to help me.
Right.
And then I did go to a 12-step program.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in the next segment, because we know we're going
Yeah.
to talk about the managing the download,
Yeah.
because things started happening very fast when I got that channel open.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know what to do.
Yeah. It was like a faucet was turned on,
holy
right?
cow. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I really needed some help managing that. So anyways,
Yeah.
that was like,
I
that's
love
a
that.
story I really wanted to share. And remember Mona, she's not with us anymore. She
Oh,
passed away
man.
about 15 years ago, but she was such a wonderful healer. She helped so many of those kids in that
That's
treatment
so
center. And then
amazing.
myself too. So
Yeah. Yeah. Which isn't that cool how our paths take us? You knew you were a creative, but you also knew that, okay, well, I have to get a job and I have to work and I have to do
yeah.
this. So you work there. And lo and behold, that's exactly where you needed to be to meet Mona. Like
Yes.
that gives me goosebumps.
Synchronicity right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we should kind of probably share some of those stories as we think of them, throughout the podcast series, because there's so many things that happen like that it's like you're in what you think is this isn't what I want to be doing, but I have to do it for this, that, or the other. And it's exactly where you're supposed to be because, XYZ. I have many stories like that as well.
Yes. And just to add on to what you're saying,
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that we are always being shown, the path is always there.
Yes.
But if we're blocked,
yeah,
we can't hear it or see it. That's
right.
like my takeaway, right?
Yep.
So like, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Right.
It's coming to you.
Right.
And so that synchronicity is part of that, right? So when you're paying attention, and you're open, you've been opened up a little bit, and all of a sudden, all these things that it's just like the stars align, right? Like
yeah, right.
Exactly.
Aligning.
It's because I feel like for me, it was always coming at me, but I couldn't say yes to it because I couldn't hear it and see it.
Right. It wasn't, you didn't even know it was there. And it's similar to my story in that regard that, okay, so I'll jump into my story here in a second, but I did want to say to our listeners, if any of this doesn't sound like, if you want more detail on this, like, please let us know in the comments. We're happy to share more, maybe we'd even do like an extra episode on, just for those of you guys that want to hear more about our story, about, more details of clearing the channel and maybe how we could help guide you guys down the road. So let us know. We're both very passionate about that. And I will also say this, it does not matter your faith, your spiritual beliefs, those are yours. We have our own. Our goal is not to push anything onto anybody. And we also want you guys to know that, the spirit, some of these spiritual things that we talk about, Some of them are a combination of spiritual and flat out science. So whether you're spiritual or not, that is a-okay. We'll try and give you kind of
Yes.
the science behind things too, and the psychology behind things too, so
Yeah.
that if you can't grab onto the spiritual, totally fine, grab onto the scientific and the psychological.
Yes.
Anyways, all that to say, that's amazing. Yeah, and I look forward. I've heard a bit of your story, but I look forward to other people hearing it as we share more, throughout the podcast and this episode. Um, for me, so clearing the channel, just like what you said, it's I consider that channel that creative pathway,
Mhm.
and so many creatives for numerous reasons, but there's a lot of them that are they're very similar. Whether you're a dancer, painter, songwriter, scriptwriter, story novelist, whatever, there's so many things that block our channel, aka just block us from being able to be creative. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Clearing the channel is basically giving us the freedom to create, right? So that's, again, if you're not a spiritual person, think of it that way.
Yes.
Clearing that channel is making it so that you're free to create. And for me, I have a similar story when it comes to family, in that it's not that I was discouraged from creativity. I just wasn't encouraged necessarily. And I mean, my mom loves me to pieces. She always encouraged me in the things that I did, but our family was a sports family. So when I was growing up, sports were, I think I did gymnastics at one point. I was, 9 years old, doing it for 2 hours every day at one point, because
Oh,
I was
yeah.
working towards being an elite gymnast.
Mhm.
All the while, and now again, self reflection, all the while through all of my sports, knowing that there was something missing. Not that it was bad that I did my sports, I learned a lot from those,
Yeah.
but I also didn't have the time and didn't allow myself to explore more of that creativity. um and then I started getting tastes of it here and there, and I have a really beautiful story that maybe I won't share it here, but the first time that I ever experienced the power of music and creativity for me was incredible. It was when I was 16, and I got to share a song that I wrote in front of the school, in front of my whole school, and I'd never done anything like that before, and it was so powerful. I will talk about that more probably another time, but that was my first real taste of, oh my God, this is what I'm created for.
Yes.
Whether I
Yes.
get to do it, full-time professional, or if it's just a hobby, but that I have to do this.
This
So
was your
that's
place. This was your purpose.
this
Yeah.
is my purpose. And so
Yeah.
that's when I started realizing, okay, not again at the time, not knowing it was my channel was blocked. And for me, it was just kind of lack of encouragement, not discouragement, just lack of encouragement. Focus on other things that I was told were what you had to focus on, the logical, the realistic. You need to do sports so that you can get a scholarship and go to college and have a good job,
Achievement. There's a
which
lot of achievement. Yeah.
achievement and what the world was telling us at the time was
Yeah.
that's success. you
Right.
know and obviously there's so much going on now that about success and what it really is and means to everybody. So
Yes.
that's for another time, but that's a brief bit of my story about channeling, or clearing my channel. I really The big thing for me, I really struggled in my 20s,
Yeah.
and it was just this weird, I mean, that was when my anxiety and depression were the worst. And I'm looking back on it, I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? It was kind of bad into my mid 30s too. But I think what it not so much just flat out depression and anxiety. I was battling with myself, thinking, well, but I'm supposed to do this. I have to do this, the real world stuff. I have to get a job. Again, I have to get a job. I have to make a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
I can't pursue my art. And that was killing me inside. And I think that was what was causing so much turmoil, which was causing the depression, anxiety.
Yes.
I do think there's still a chemical imbalance. That's okay. I'm dealing with that part. But that time in my life, I didn't know it, but that was me needing to clear the channel, you know.
Yes.
And so thankfully within these last couple of years, actually ever since we moved here to Southwest Colorado, I'm in much more nature. Like I'm in fresh air. I get to go outside a lot. Um, and I started realizing, again, without knowing what to call it, I've got to get some shit out of me,
Yeah.
before I can let this stuff come in. That's what I'm supposed to create and put out to the world, whether one person hears it, sees it, reads it, whatever, or
Yes.
hundreds, thousands of people. I don't know. I just know that I needed to clear that out before anything else can come in.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
that's
you know
that's
what?
my story.
And it's continuous.
Yeah, it
It
is. That's
is.
true. It's not a one-time thing.
It's not a one-time thing.
Yep.
It is a practice of
Mm-hmm.
continuing to clear the channel. And I think so much of our depression, like when you talk about in your 20s and depression, are is it can be. I mean, I was so depressed at
Yeah.
23 years old.
Right.
I didn't
Same.
know I was even depressed. I just didn't
Right.
know what to do. And it's such a time in your 20s of
Oof.
really individuating and finding out
Mm-hmm.
who you are. And I just want to say that when you hang around other creatives, I have some very creative friends, and my
Yeah.
husband always has been around creatives. I went to Canada. I went to Victoria in 2016 to stay with some friends of ours, and I love these guys. He is a performance artist, John Beaumay. He teaches at the University of Victoria, and his wife
Nice.
Kane is a sculptor.
Okay.
And
Oh,
all of their
cool.
friends are like creative people.
Oh, that's
And I
amazing.
was reading Big Magic at the time because I was
Oh,
kind of
nice.
blocked off, and they kept telling me, you need
Yeah.
to keep reading Big Magic. But the thing was, and this is kind of leading us into the next segment, I think,
Yeah,
if you're
perfect.
done
Yeah.
with talking about that,
Yeah. Let's jump into
being
the second.
surrounded by other creatives, like there was
Yes.
a feeling that I had with them of being able to be myself,
Yes.
giving me this permission to
Yes.
be creative.
Yeah.
And that part, like I kind of like want to talk about that when you're not around. I
Oh,
had not really felt, I feel like that when I'm around my creatives, right? My
hmm.
creative people. When I went on the
Right.
songwriter retreat that Judy had with all the songwriters, it was like, oh my God, these are my people. Like I could
Right.
so open up and be myself. It was easy to clear the channel to let things in.
Right.
But when we're not around, when we don't create space, so I think for me, like that part of managing the download,
Yeah.
managing the channel being cleared is creating a safe space
Yes.
for
That's
yourself
so good.
and
Yep.
being around people. Now, I didn't consciously do this, but when I
Hmm.
was 23 and I went through that process with Mona, and then all of a sudden I like decided, as I'm working at a treatment center, I'm going to quit alcohol altogether too.
Yeah.
And I went to a 12-step program. Immediately I was drawn to who's one of my best friends today, a man that was a composer for films,
Oh, that's amazing.
musician, and
Yeah.
his girlfriend was an artist, and they became my close friends. I created subconsciously this safety. And like
Yes.
when I was in Canada, it was just like, I want to move to Canada because I think everybody's like that. That's just kind of my
Yeah.
childhood brain thinks that they're all, but
All of
because
Canada is
I know.
creative.
Well, they do like creativity a lot,
Hey,
but
that
they
I
do
like
honor the
that.
arts. But I felt this like place of like I was with my people kind of a thing
Yes.
that I
Oh,
could be, and I could allow more.
yeah.
And so I think that was a big part for me on trying to manage the download, because a lot of stuff started happening when I was 23, when I
Yeah.
cleared that channel, and alcohol, food, there's lots of things we use to kind of dim our light.
Food would be
And
mine.
mine too. I mean, I go, but at that time, alcohol was a big factor
Right.
and it is for a lot of young
It
20
is.
somethings. That's like
It
our
is.
culture.
Yep.
So I let that go. And all of a sudden I was like quantum leaping into these other places that
Yeah.
was just terrifying,
Yeah.
really.
Your
And
channel started
so
getting overflown.
overflowed.
And
And
what do you do with that?
yes, what do you do? And so I really needed help. And so I really had people that could be there to help me like calm that down. And it's
Yeah.
one step at a time, one day at a time.
Yeah.
And then writing, so I do, a lot of writing, but I just want to say that there's so many 12-step programs in
Yeah.
the world now.
Yeah.
There's some for artists. So I do think those programs are so specific on how you can really clear the channel and
Yeah.
manage the download. It's
Yeah.
helped me. I've done it in different ways. And we'll put one of the resources in here for artists specifically
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think when you're in a group and you're doing something like that, or you're doing the artist way, which we have brought up, and the other people there are also currently tapped into their creative, or
Yeah.
they're longing to create, get tapped in. It's really magical.
What,
So
and what is that resource? What is the that you're
it's the
referring to?
Arts Anonymous .org is a 12-step program for artists.
Awesome.
And you can Google it and look and see if you're an artist and you just want to like, you're like,
That's
that
so
I need
cool.
to go in some direction like that.
Yeah.
I also actually think the artist's way, which we're going to talk about too, is another really great tool to do with other
Yeah.
artists. And I've done that 3 times, once by myself and twice with other people. And it does help you to clear the channel and then learn how to manage the download or if too much is coming in, how to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because like your story, and I love that you shared your story the way you did, we're really not taught this if we're
Right.
creatives,
No.
unless you're lucky enough
Right.
to
If
have
you-
creative parents. Like my friends
right.
in Canada, their kids have all grown up. I have to tell you, they will say things like, oh, well, how could you just go to college if you don't know who you are yet?
Man. Oh, and that's so good.
Yes.
I
How
think
could
that's
you
one of the
just
big
go to,
takeaways. Oh,
you got to know who you are.
yeah. Yeah. And it's I'm glad you said that because that's something that I feel like this whole episode is just getting a glimpse and starting into you have to find out who you are
Yes.
before you can really create. But the cool thing is sometimes it takes creating to start figuring out who you are.
Yes. You have to take that risk,
It's this
right?
like it's like
Yeah.
this yin and yang, it's this balance, it's this, sometimes you're creating to figure out who you are, sometimes you figured out a piece of who you are and you start creating,
Yeah.
and it's always changing. And I think that's magical. That's part of the creative download for me, too. um I and I'm so sorry, did you have yeah did was there any other thoughts on for today anyway? I mean, again, it's a
Just,
deep dive
yeah,
down the road.
just to wrap up at 23, because I'm talking about my younger self, right? At
Yeah.
23, when this all kind of cracked open for me, right after all of that happened, Mona, I quit alcohol, I start this 12-step program. My stepbrother, I just want to say this because this was so special to me. He started taking guitar. He was like 3 or 4 years
I
younger than me.
love
He
that.
started taking guitar at community college, and I walked into
Yeah.
my dad and my stepmom's house one day, and I'm open. I was
Yeah.
open, right? And he's
Yeah.
just playing this amazing, like he was really good, really
Yeah.
fast. And I walked in and immediately started hearing lyrics.
Oh, I love that.
And
Oh.
instead of just like just missing that, I sat down. I was like, let's write a song together. I have lyrics coming in. Can you keep doing that? And we wrote my first song as an adult together.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it
I
was,
love that.
and this, so to me, I didn't, and even at that point, I didn't recognize yet that I'm a
Yeah.
songwriter.
Oh, isn't
I
that
didn't actually
interesting?
get it for 3 more years. And we can
Yeah.
talk about that in another episode. But that was the first beginning of it. And I held on to that song, and I kind of put it on a, shelf because
Yeah.
I was nervous. I really wanted to move to California. I wanted to do all these other things. So,
Yeah.
and
Because you
they
were in
all,
Arizona at that time, right?
yeah, they all
Okay.
happened. And I really think it was because I cleared the channel. I don't think
Yeah.
without clearing the channel. So,
Yeah.
um, that's it. That's all I wanted to say about
No, I
my
love
first
that.
channel clearing and managing the download. But that was the budding of my song
I
writing.
love that. That is so cool. And as far as our art goes, kind of that some of those first, pieces that may come out
Yeah.
after you start clearing the channel, those may it's you know there's this thought out there that because I did have to learn this with my art that I want to share with people is you have to let go and not, not hold it so tight that
Yeah.
you can't take the feedback, that you can't take it if somebody doesn't like it. It's okay. So
Yeah.
there's a difference between that and then some of these pieces that you may never share that song with anybody, and that is okay
Yeah.
because that's for you, and that you're allowed to hold on to that. Again, it's so weird because there's rules and laws, if you will, against being creative that we've talked about, And then it's funny because some people try and make rules then when you are
Are
allowing yourself to
creative.
be
I know.
creative, or it's,
Yeah.
it's like you can't take things personal. You have to
Yeah.
take critiques. And it's like, you know what? There are some things that you're not going to let go of, and you're allowed to hold on to it like it's your baby, and you just tuck that away for you. That is a-okay,
Yeah.
because I'm kind of learning that now. My biggest thing with clearing the channel was learning how to find myself, stop trying to be somebody else. So I talked about,
Yes.
battling with myself of, well, you need to be this person to be successful in life and make a living for yourself and have a successful life you're proud of. And at the time, it's funny because I think as artists, we struggle to compare, we compare ourselves all the time. I was actually comparing myself with my brother, and I love my brother to pieces. And he had nothing to do with this. This is not his fault. I was comparing myself to him. He had, to me, and he's a couple years older, he had life figured out. He was married. He had one kid, and then I think they had a kid a couple of years after that. As far as the timeline,
Yeah.
obviously I know when he had kids.
He did the traditional
But
track.
the timeline, yeah,
Yeah.
he did the traditional track. He went to college, played sports, got a scholarship. I mean, it was amazing to me. Like I had him on a pedestal, um, and I was trying to follow suit. I mean, I got a scholarship for diving to go to a Division I university. I quit
Wow.
after 2 months because
Wow.
I was also dealing with health issues. But I really think that those health issues, in a weird way, were a godsend because that's not what I was supposed to be doing. I was
Right.
trying to live somebody else's life. I was trying to live my brother's life. And then I struggled with the depression of, well, I can't cut it. I'm weak. I can't handle this. I can't do this life. And I started realizing down the road, that's because I was trying to do a life that wasn't mine. So
Yes.
of course I'm going to struggle with it. Of course I'm not going to succeed at that life, you know? And so for me, it took probably 15 years,
Yeah.
you know, to really start to get into the depths of who the hell am I,
Yeah.
and what do I have to offer this world? I mean, I really feel like since I was a kid, I was trying to be somebody else. And I think,
Wow.
and I think that just happens sometimes. All that to say, my downloads kind of started slowly, which was, like I said, was good for me.
Yeah.
And and again, at the time I didn't really realize what they were, but I'd get these little snippets. And I remember writing this one song where I had this moment of clarity, just another piece of myself that I was learning about myself, or another piece of myself that came to reality, to
Yeah.
fruition. Yeah, you guys know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I learned another piece of me.
Yes.
And in that moment, I literally wrote a song in maybe, 30 minutes
Yeah.
based off of that. And I did record it. It's probably not a song that I'll ever throw on, redo and throw on Spotify. It's probably one that I will just kind of hold close to me because it was really important to me at the time, but it's not one it's not one that I would share necessarily. But it was really powerful for me because I saw what I could do with the download.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I did have people listen to it and they were impacted by it. It was great, you
yeah.
know. And yeah,
Yes.
what were you
I
gonna say?
wanted to say, like, because we've brought this up a couple of times. I think just identifying, oh, this is the download. Oh, I need to
Yes.
write this down, right? So
Yes.
oh, it's coming in. Like
Yes.
once I started, like the first time that song happened with my stepbrother, I didn't know that was the download. So it's
Right.
like you said, it took a long time.
Yeah.
It was happening. I just didn't know. And
Yeah.
so and that kind of to go off what you said, it doesn't always mean what you download is meant to be go to the next level to
Yeah.
share.
To
The
share.
purpose might be different. This is something I've had to
Hmm.
learn. We call it sometimes the song before the song on my
Yeah. I
songwriting
love
team.
that. I love that.
So the download might come in. I might get this idea. My lyricist Lori gets a lot of lyrical downloads. She's a great lyricist, and
Nice.
so we have a lyric bank. Like we
Yep.
just sometimes you lyric bank it. I use it on my phone and
I
Google
was gonna
Docs.
say, yeah. What do you do? When you say lyric bank, what does that look like for you?
Well,
Is
I
that on your
actually learned
phone?
this last year. I used to write everything on paper, but that
Yeah.
was really hard to keep track of all my
Right.
lyrics. And
Yeah.
so I've switched everything to Google Docs. And
Oh,
so
nice.
Google Docs is kind of where I operate with everything. for
Yeah.
lyrics. And
Yeah.
so as a song, and then I use my phone if it's a melody. So I'm a top liner, so I do the melody and the lyrics a lot of times. So I'll have lyrics come in down. It's just they come in,
Right.
it's like download. They all of a
It's
sudden
literally like they just pop
I'm
up.
hearing them. And
Yeah.
so I just put them in my lyric bank. And
I
then
love that.
so when I go to co-write, so it's and sometimes, like you were just saying, like something comes in and sometimes it is meant for me.
Right.
Sometimes it is meant for me. It's
Yeah.
almost like a
Just for you.
self-reflection or some
Yeah.
messaging that I'm getting that I'm like, it processes through music for me. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily meant to become a song for anybody else.
Yeah.
Poems happen like that too. Oh,
Yeah.
this is a poem. Okay, this is
Yeah.
not a song. And then just writing it down. Oh, and speaking of, or like a TV series that's
Right.
downloaded,
Exactly. Which
you know,
we happen to be working on that. We're interesting.
I will be like walking around and I'm like, oh, here it comes. I got to write down for
Yeah.
this, I know exactly
Know
what's
that.
coming
I know
next.
that feeling.
So,
It's
I
almost like
mean,
our spidey senses start tingling, and the more you
yeah,
hone that, the more you're prepared for it,
yeah,
again, that's the importance of clearing the channel so that you can be ready for it.
yeah,
And then going on to, managing the download,
yeah,
you know, once your channel is clear or is starting to clear, trusting that stuff is going to come, again, whether like maybe you're a painter and it's like, you clear your channel and maybe you start, however it is that you get what you see that you're going to paint. Maybe you're ready to literally just, okay, I'm sitting in my canvas and I'm just going to let this go. Or you
yeah,
get a visual in your head, and that's your download. And, what do you do with it? And I think actually that works perfect going into our last segment here on
yeah,
kind of resources. We wanted to chat about the Artist Way. I really want to talk about, like an exercise or a, resource tool, whatever it may be. There's so many out there, and I know you and I use a ton of different things, but for today's episode, let's chat about the kind of one of the top ones that you do, and same for me. And I'll share. And I have a
yeah,
feeling it's gonna be very similar, based on what we talked about.
yeah.
But
We're a lot alike in this
we're a
area.
lot alike in that regard. So for you, like what helps you to clear the channel? What do what's an exercise that you do that helps you with that?
Well, I do write every morning. So like
Okay.
part of, and I think I write, which I got this from the Artist Way, but I did
Yeah.
write before I did the Artist Way, but now it's more like, okay, these are morning pages. So for me, I do it every morning. I'm up before everybody else in my family. Me and my cat and my dog are up, and then
Yeah.
I write, and a lot of times it's a dump.
Right.
It's like dumping out
Yep.
stuff that's gone on. Maybe I'm
It's
upset
not
with
structured.
something. It's not structured. It is
Yep.
just free writing. And I actually
Yep.
do write in a journal. And I buy 90, I like, oh, here's my journal right here. I buy just these little composition books. I don't spend a
Nice.
lot of money on them because I
Yep.
go through them so much.
Right.
And I don't keep them all the time either. That was an issue of like, what do I
Yeah.
do with all these?
Where do I keep all these?
But it's really just like dumping out all of that stuff. And then I'm going to share two. And then the other
Yeah,
is
please do.
I do a morning walk. I have to get
Yeah.
outside into nature.
Yes.
And when I do that, I'm lucky to live in San Diego where I can be outside a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And there's something about that for me. And I
Oh
do those
yeah.
two things almost every day.
Yeah.
There's other things I can do. I mean, I'm constantly I have a really good set of like how to work with all of that and how this last year has been really like my year of coming into this like
Nice.
very strongly where I have
Yes.
like okay, this part, because what I'd always do is I would open up and get creative, and then life would come up. We talked about this in the last episode.
Right.
I'd have to put my creativity away. I
Like
didn't
it
know,
was a different
I didn't know how to,
segment.
yeah, I didn't know how to incorporate it, integrate it. I like the word to
Yeah.
integrate it into my life because
Yes.
I do work as a realtor.
Right.
I have a lot people outside of my creative world that I
Right.
interact with all the time and I love. So it was like, how do I integrate this? So this year has been a big part of integrating that and like, but also creating the safe space. And so the part
Yes.
of the Artist Way, I would say for right now, for people in the beginning of clearing the channel, I don't think you have to do the Artist Way from
And
front
and
to
just
back.
and just to reference back, like, so
Yeah.
this is The Artist's Way,
Yeah.
by Julia Cameron. That's what we keep referencing, but I know we didn't really actually. Ooh, that made my face real bright. Shine the light.
Shine the
But
light on you.
I know we talk a lot about the artist way. We talked about it last episode, but I just want to make sure we mention like it's a book by
Yeah.
Julia Cameron. It's amazing. Highly recommend it for any artist.
Yeah, and she has the first week, like the first real chapter is like just creating a sense of safety. So it's
Yeah.
like creating that sense of safety in your
What does
world
that look
around
like?
creativity. And she gives a lot of wonderful examples that I've taken away. And
Yeah.
some of it is like, who do I share my creativity with?
Right.
And
Yes,
who
it's
do I not?
huge.
And like just being able to hear it. So when I am like regularly keeping my channel open and I'm comfortable with, this management of the download. Sometimes I'm not, but
Right.
always working on that.
Right.
Then I have a real good intuitive voice that
Yeah.
says, this person, maybe I don't want to share what I'm doing with. And then that's okay. We just
That is
don't.
totally okay. Yep.
And so I'm not such an open book, like,
Yep.
because that's what it feels like when you first clear the channel. It's like all of a
Yep.
sudden it feels very exposing.
Yeah.
And we don't live in a world where everybody is safe for that. That's just the
Exactly.
reality.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And we have to
Right.
understand that and accept that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's like two people I share that with. Well, including you and my friend Pete.
Yeah. It's
You
so
know,
vulnerable.
it's so vulnerable
No.
and you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And then kind of, figure out, okay, is this something that I am going to share with other people? Is this something just for me? I've had so many creative downloads where I'm like, nope, this is just for me. And then I will share it with somebody even still, and I will regret it because I'm like, no, that was just for me because I'm disappointed by whatever they say or do. But then I realize I'm like, I'm disappointed because it's not something I was supposed to share with anybody else. That was just for me. It was the song before the song or the story that inspired the story,
Yeah.
So there's
That's how we
so
learn
much there.
though, sometimes, we do
Exactly.
learn and know that like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it does, cause somebody and myself, I've done this where I just put the creativity away for a long period of time. But here's the thing
Yep.
about
I
real
did the same thing.
creatives is that voice does not go away. And so that voice,
Exactly.
I don't care. I can try to bury that creative
Yeah,
as I
exactly.
want, but
Right.
that voice does not go away from me.
No,
And
it
so I
doesn't.
can't. It just that's who I am. And
Yep.
so I think it's been so fun to like embrace the creativity and talk about it. And I went to a meeting, a 12-step Arts Anonymous meeting. I got invited to. It just made me think of this like about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
My friend's an artist. She's a fantastic painter. I'm
Yeah.
not really good at art, that part of art yet.
Yeah.
I love it though. I
You
loved
love the
it.
colors,
Oh,
and
I love the
that's
colors. I
that's
loved
something
it.
that helps. Yeah, right.
She invited me, and it was all different people. I was the only songwriter there, and I do
Cool.
kind of feel like songwriters are unique. I think we talked about this before. I do feel like we are like we're unique as
We're a
in the
certain breed.
artist world. Writers are in the artist world too. But what was so amazing is to be able to sit and tell my whole creative story. Like I
That's
had
cool.
never sat and actually only focused on that part of myself.
Yeah.
Didn't
That's
we talk?
that's
We talked
cool.
about this week.
Yeah.
I, so everybody went around and said, well, how did your art start and what happened? And I
Yeah.
went through my whole story, and that was a clearing for me I wasn't expecting. And this was just like 3 years ago because I'd been so busy building my real estate business and I kind
Right.
of tap into my music here and there, but I hadn't built my community. I
Right.
built, and that's another thing, building your community, right?
Yes.
I think we should do that next segment. I think we should talk more
I
about
like that.
and like how important building a community for creatives is,
Yeah.
so that I can keep it consistent because
Yeah.
I'd put my creative person kind of away again.
Yeah.
And that meeting just like, and I didn't feel like I needed to keep going to it. Like,
Yeah. Sure.
I didn't click with everybody in the meeting as far
Yeah.
as like my people, but what it did is open that channel.
That's
So that
awesome.
I went to the songwriter retreat. I did all these other things. And all of a sudden, now I'm co-writing with you and we're doing our
Mhm.
podcast. And I'm, you know, co-writing with two other co-writers and doing the whole sync process, which sync means getting, placing songs in TV
Yeah.
and film. And,
Music and yeah.
just I found like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But that was the catalyst, is
I
to
love that.
get that going. And that was just, again, 3 years ago. It wasn't,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah. So
it's
that
ongoing.
the importance of that being that, finding the community, finding your people. And I love that, again, and we kind of chatted about this last episode, but I love how, some of, like, the majority of my creative people that are my safe people are online. Like, you and
Yeah.
I have never met in person. I
I
mean, and
know.
I look forward to the
Good
day that we
one.
get to, like,
I
actually
know.
hang out in person. That's gonna be so
Yes,
much
we
fun.
will. We will.
But look how close we are,
Yeah.
and we're thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
By the way, I think it should be where you are that we meet, because I'm dying to go to San
Yeah. Come
Diego
to San
and go to the
Diego.
beach.
But I
I'm
love the
totally
woods.
game.
I love Colorado. Yeah.
You will, yeah. I honestly, so we'll have a summer retreat, or we'll do a, retreat in San Diego, and then we'll do one here in
Yeah.
Durango. And
Yeah.
maybe we'll open that up and we can, other people can come.
Yes. I've been to
um,
Durango in high school. It's just been so
oh, I
long
love
since
it.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it here. And I'm very thankful, because that is probably what really started opening up the channel for me here, because of nature. And there's something about being in the mountains and the fresh air, and 5 minutes away from my house there's this huge open space that you can see the mountains, and I take my dog for walks. I'm very blessed. I'm very thankful, and I know you are, because of where you live. I do want to encourage people that don't live in, maybe you're kind of stuck in the city, like, or
Mhm.
maybe you like the city, and
Yeah.
that's where you want
City
to
might
be.
be.
Or you're
Mhm.
in Nashville, maybe you're trying to make music happen. There are ways you have to find what it is for you. And if you are stuck in this city and it is nature for you, you know, that's where you can really get creative and figure out, okay, what do I need for me?
Yeah.
So, and again, I think that's going to be a whole other episode, like encouraging, finding what it is for you, trying different things,
Yeah.
seeing what really helps open you up and inspires your creativity. So, on that note, we're going to kind of wrap up here. We don't want to talk your ears off, but I just, again, Christine, I know we just love this. Like, we get so excited and so passionate about this. So,
And we'd
you know,
love to hear from people that if
yes,
you comment,
yes,
just your experiences of, opening up your channel or how you're
yeah,
experiencing the podcast in general
yes,
and what you're
yeah,
hearing. And is this supporting you
yeah.
as a creative, which is the goal, right? Our
Yeah, and
goal is to
share,
support.
yeah, exactly. And share with us. And for now, let's see, Christy, I think we're trying to do this in a way that's not overwhelming for us, because we're trying to be
Yes.
realistic with we do have day jobs and we do have to work. Um, but we absolutely, like, we really want to start community with you all. So I think right now it will probably be, if you comment, you can comment on Spotify podcasts, right? Or
Well,
on
we'll be
podcasts,
on YouTube here
and we'll be
coming
on
soon.
YouTube.
So this,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
episode is going on YouTube. So
Yeah.
we'll have this up and you can comment there.
Yeah. So for now, however you're listening, or if you're watching and listening, comment, let us know. We'd love to know what your art is too. And
Yeah.
it'd be
Like,
cool
yeah,
to
who's
know,
listening? What
yeah,
artists
who's
are listening?
listening, what is your art, what is your creative or creative, multiple passions, like Christy and I have. And then where you're at in your journey. Like,
Yeah.
where would you say, are you, did you, what did it dawn on you that you're like, crap, I don't think I have a clear channel. I never
Yeah.
even thought about it that way. Or are you, have you cleared it and you're working on how do you manage the download? Because it can be overwhelming
Yeah.
in really good ways. And what do I do with all this? So we'd
Yeah.
love to hear from you guys.
Yes.
Where you're at, or even just to say, hey, I'm in, tell us where you're from.
Yeah.
And if you're just listening, just to enjoy listening to creativity. You don't have to do any art. That's totally fine too.
Yeah. On
Um,
a walk, maybe you're just listening to us
yeah, you're just
talk
listening
about
to
it.
us, and we just, I mean, I'll do a shameless thing and say, hey, we're artists. We're to a point with our with ourselves, that we've gotten a lot more secure, and we don't need validation as much. But hey, we're human and we're artists, so we still need, do
Yeah.
you like it? Are you
Yeah. Do you
enjoying what
like
you're
it?
hearing? What would you like to hear? What are some of the things,
Yeah.
so we will eventually have our social, like, we're working on our social right now, so we'll have Facebook and Instagram up.
Yep.
And we'll send links out to that. So you can find us on buzzsprout.com. That's
Yes.
where we're hosting our podcast. Shout out to them. It's been a really great process getting started. Like, we really it's been a good platform.
Good.
So at minimum, you can find us there, and I believe you can. That's kind of where our website is right now. We don't have our website yet, so I mean our domain, but you can
Right.
find us through Buzzsprout. Just go there,
And listen
search,
on Spotify.
listen on Spotify. But yeah, just search Buzzsprout, the Creative Download. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're looking forward to being on there, but it's been
Yeah.
a little bit more involved of a process. So bear with us. We're trying to get on there too and figure out what what we're missing on the back end to get on there.
It'll
So
all happen. We're just doing it. So we're just
yep.
going. We're
Just
going.
like
It will
just like we
grow.
said, yeah, exactly. And just like we said in the last episode, we're meeting ourselves where we're at. We're not we're not in a position where we can do all of these things at once. And I
Yeah.
think that's hopefully that's encouraging to you guys that are out there because
Yes.
you start where you're at, you work with what you've got. So
Meet yourself
um
where you're at and go from there.
yeah.
There we go.
So yeah. And so in our show notes, we'll have the links to the resource we were talking about.
Yep.
We'll have a link to the book again, The Artist Way, the community that you, Christy, had mentioned.
Arts
Um,
Anonymous. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, art is it artsanonymous.org.
Artsanonymous.org.
Okay, cool. ARTS. Okay, cool. And then yeah, we're just thrilled to have y'all here. Again, that biggest takeaway we want you to get from today really is that clearing the channel and then downloading it, it's all about acknowledging and learning who you
Who
are.
you are. Yeah.
Um, and I hate to even say as an artist because it's not a separate thing. It is
Mm-mm.
who you are. And when you really start to give yourself freedom and space and a safe place to find out who you are, your art will come,
It just
whatever
comes.
it's supposed to be.
It does. It just comes. It's
Yeah,
not like you're just drawn to
you're
something. You're
drawn to
drawn
it.
to it and you allow
Yeah,
yourself to go there. It's not so much like, okay, I'm going to clear my channel so I can become this, this, and this. It does not,
exactly.
for me,
That's
it
not
did
how it
not work
works.
like that.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, I kind of always think of it as this voice is always here, it's always there to tell me, hey, ooh, I've got these ideas, or here's a song, here's a lyric, here's a whatever it may be. It may be a whole piece of something, it may be a little snippet. But when the more that I, am not authentic and true to myself, the less I can hear that voice. But it's
Yeah,
always there.
it's
So
always
clearing the
there.
channel is I mean, it's kind of like clearing, not to be gross, but clearing out the wax out of your ear so you can hear it.
Yeah,
So we
100%.
encourage you, find a safe community where you can really figure out who you are, and it's a constant journey. So come
You
on the
know,
journey with
and I
us.
think it even just starts with, I want to clear my channel. How do I do that? I have had so
That
it
right there
doesn't,
will
you don't
help.
have to figure it out.
Yep,
You don't have to
exactly.
figure out how to do it. If you
Yep,
have a desire for that, then just that will start, just
that starts it.
acknowledge that starts it. And
Mm-hmm.
like what here's a trick that I've kept is that when someone has told me something 3 times, like 2 or 3 times,
When you hear it from different places, like
different
three different
places,
times,
yeah,
yes,
then it's an, oh, I better pay attention to
I
that.
need to pay it. I do the
And
same thing.
that has been evidentiary. I mean, for not so much when I was younger, but definitely in my 20s on.
Yeah.
And so I know that that's like my next step. So it's being open to like hearing. And a lot of times, the first couple of times I hear something from somebody that is the direction I'm supposed to go. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I'll get offended almost.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna, like when my friend said I should sell real estate, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not a used
No.
car salesman. I'm a school teacher.
Right.
I
Right.
was so resistant. And so, but
Right.
I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I'm
Yep.
so glad I listened because it happened more than one time. It
Yep.
was like, I was like, okay, I keep hearing this. Maybe I should do
Yep.
that. And it's not about being a real estate
Right.
agent. It's about being with the people actually that I'm
Mm-hmm.
working with. That's really
Yeah.
what it's about. And
Yeah.
so I'm working with this team. So it's such an opposite way of doing things than how you're taught in school. And I can tell you that because
So
I taught
true.
school.
Yes, that's true. And that'll be a fun perspective
Yeah,
to talk about that as teacher, but then also as artist
as an
now,
artist.
as a true, you
Yeah,
embraced your artist person as your person,
yeah, yeah.
and yeah. Oh gosh, see, we could just keep. Well, man,
Well, we
we
have
could keep on
way
going.
more episodes,
Yes, we're
so it's
so
time to say
excited.
goodbye, and
Yes,
we'll
time
be
to say
back
goodbye.
with to follow up on this and have more conversation. And can't wait to
Yeah.
hear from you all. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And we hope you have an amazing day, whatever day you decide to listen to this. And work on clearing those channels and get ready for those downloads. So,
Yes,
all right, guys. Well, Christy, always good to talk to you. And I will talk to you
you
again
too.
soon.
Okay,
All
see you
right.
next Friday.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to The Creative Download, hosted by Christy Bruno and Chelsea Nettleton, edited by Chelsea Nettleton.